Hello, everyone. It's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. A few days ago, Aptera and Steve Fambro were on a local news station, Fox 32 in Chicago. Now, Fox 32 in Chicago is unfortunately one of the weakest owned Fox stations. They don't have very good viewership, and in the Chicago market, they actually trail the CW, which is not great. But it's a it's TV, and I think Aptera should go after whatever exposure they can get. I will say that this interview was a little painful to watch, but let's watch it together and kind of comment. Not too much real news or anything new for those of us that have been following Aptera, but it's always good to see Aptera getting some exposure. So, maybe there's a few thousand people that saw Aptera for the first time in the Chicago area because of this newscast, but let's watch it.
Welcome back, everyone. 922. You're looking at an electric vehicle. They have exploded in popularity in recent years, but a new type of eco-friendly vehicle is in the works. Aptera says it's working on a solar-powered car that wouldn't require a lot of charging every day. Very interesting, right? So joining us now to talk more about this is the CEO, Steve Fambro. Good morning to you, Steve. Nice.
Okay, so she's calling the CEO. She probably means co-CEO. But anyways.
Nice to have you on this morning.
Hey, good morning, and it's nice to join you.
Okay, so solar cars. I don't know too much about these. Tell me, what makes them different than the EVs that we're used to seeing?
Well, it starts at the top, the very reason our company exists, and that's to make every journey powered by the sun. So when you have that as a belief from the senior management on down, then you end up designing products that are lightweight and efficient and able to be solar powered. You couldn't make a regular electric vehicle solar powered because they're too heavy and they're too inefficient.
Okay, I'm looking at them. It's such an interesting concept. Okay.
What's interesting is they're using the video from Jerry Rig Everything's visit to Aptera.
Let's get to these two things. Tell me how it works, how does it charge, and the cost, if you can give me those answers in those in that direction.
Well, you plug it in if you want, like a normal electric vehicle, but most people will be able to charge up to 40 miles a day just from parking it in the sun. So that's about the average commute of most Americans. So most Americans just won't have to plug it in at all. But you can plug it in like a normal car. You'll be able to go to the Tesla supercharger or any other regular EV charging station.
Okay, so
there's a wide range of prices, and the most optioned up one is around $50,000. The most popular, with all the roughly 40,000 or so pre-orders that we have, I think is optioned around $38,000.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, I think she interrupted him, and it kind of ruined Steve's train of thought because he was gonna give the full range. I think like it goes up to 50,000, but it starts at like $26,000, and he should have given the low end $26,000, but he gave the most popular option, which is like 38,000. Now this makes me think that Aptera is still kind of thinking that price range is possible. And I think with the battery prices going down lately and the prices of some commodities for sourcing these things coming down a little bit, maybe a huge price hike is not in the works, and maybe they will be able to stay close to the original price that they talked about back about 3 years ago. So hoping that's the case, and it sounds like Steve is still quoting those prices, and so there haven't been any like clear shifts to increase the price yet. So that's good news. And I think he missed a small opportunity to talk about, kind of clarify why solar doesn't work. I mean, he said it because the other cars are not efficient, but I think that kind of probably went over people's heads and they didn't quite catch it. He could have just said, if you put the same amount of solar on a regular EV, they would get 10 miles of range or 15 miles of range a day. But with an Aptera, you get 40 miles of range because you can go 3 times as far on the same amount of energy or something like that, just to clarify that, make that a little clearer for people.
Okay, so let's talk about the drawbacks because we have to have both sides here. I'm told they can include the cost, the limited range, the battery life, and in some cases, decreased performance has been a complaint overall.
Okay, so she's obviously knows nothing about the Aptera and is just talking about EVs in general. She's worried about people are always talking about how like there's range problems with EVs. EVs are more expensive. You can have performance degradation, that kind of stuff. These are all things that the Aptera is completely the opposite of. Like Aptera is fairly affordable for an EV if they stick to their current pricing. It has like ridiculous range. You know, like if they ever build that 1,000-mile Aptera, that'll be just crazy. And the performance is remarkably good because just it's so light.
So my question to you is, why buy one of these? Is it just about reducing the carbon footprint? And if you live in a city like Chicago, you don't get a lot of sunshine. How effective are they for you?
Well, this vehicle, the one you're looking at right now, the launch edition, is going to have about 400 miles of range. So 400 miles is an awful lot of range for an electric vehicle. And so most people aren't going to be worried about, range anxiety or things like that. And even in places like Chicago, over the year, you might not get 11 or 12,000 miles charged. You might get 7 or 6,000 miles charged. That's still a lot of free miles. So it's going to be less time at the gas station, less dependent on oil and energy from places around the world that we don't like, and more about keeping everything local in this country.
So when
I think he was catering a little bit to the Fox News crowd there, talking about sourcing, we can lose our dependence on countries we don't like and keeping everything local. Now, what's interesting is, if you guys didn't know, the #1 exporter of petroleum to the United States is actually not Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or any place like that. It's actually Canada. We import most of our oil from Canada. It's from the tar sands around Edmonton and Alberta. That's our single greatest source of petroleum. It's not the Middle East. But anyways, yeah, it's always good to keep energy independence. And obviously, we probably want to wean ourselves off of petroleum as much as possible. It's not going to be possible to do that because we still need petroleum for, petrochemicals, and for plastics and lots of other things. Like, petroleum's not going away anytime soon. But if we reduce our use, that's always good.
can people start actually seeing these solar-powered cars on the roads, and when do you think people will start buying them?
We start production later this year.
Okay, so there's two things that we gathered from this interview from Steve Ambrose's answers. One, there's no definite price increase still in the works. I don't think we're gonna get really final pricing until they actually start delivering, but it does seem like they're fairly confident that they're not gonna. So he's not hedging here. He's saying that these are our prices. So I think the prices are ballpark in that area and not changing that much. Two, he seems still pretty confident that they are going to produce this year, which we are all looking forward to.
Okay, and so again, you gave me an interesting price range. In the reality, is this kind of something you want to have as a second vehicle because of the fact that, you know, it's solar powered, and I love the fact that you said you could still plug it in as well, but is this something that people might consider as a second vehicle to maybe tool around town? What would you say to that?
Okay, again, obviously the interviewer does not understand the product at all. Now, she makes a good point of it being a second vehicle. It is actually the best use case for it is a second vehicle, but not for the reasons that she's saying. It's not because it's solar powered or for tooling around town, because the range is amazing on it. And the solar power only makes it a better single vehicle if you could make it. Probably the reason that it's a good second vehicle is because it's only a 2-passenger car. And so for a lot of families, so for a lot of single people, it's probably fine as their only car. But if you have a family and you need to cart 4 people around, this can't be your only vehicle. But it's great as a second vehicle, and Steve Fambro kind of goes into that. But so yeah, she's on the right track, but for the completely wrong reasons. Like, it being solar powered is not a detriment for it being a single vehicle or your sole vehicle. And it's not a tooling around town vehicle. It's actually more of a long range vehicle.
It depends on your use case. You know, myself as a family, we have a plug-in hybrid SUV because when we got to take 5 kids around somewhere and luggage, you know, you need something like that. But for the parent or the single person that commutes every day, this is a great vehicle for them because they can drive on the highway with confidence. They can drive at the same speed, pass people if they want. It's very aggressive performance, and it's going to cost them virtually nothing to do so because their commute is going to be powered by the sun.
Boy, I can bet you anything, once they finally are out on the road, you guys are going to get a lot of reaction because they are very unusual and kind of cool looking. Thank you so much, Steve, for sharing this information with us. You take care.
You too. My pleasure.
Okay,
Okay, so, I think Steve did a great job, and just the interviewer did not understand the product at all, and just did a not a great job of interviewing, and a little bit of a missed opportunity. I think in the under the circumstances, Steve did the best he could, but Fox News could have presented this a lot better by having the person read up a little bit and know something about the product and ask actual pertinent questions. Some of the questions were okay, but anyways, overall, I think some exposure, any exposure is better than no exposure, and this was mostly positive exposure. It just the whole interview was just felt awkward to me. All right, tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great day.